Knights are best in the center where they... Where's White's knight on b1 best placed? This does not develop White's knight on b1. Look at that centralized knight. Great job. White's knight controls the e4 square and adds pressure to Black's pawn on d5. How should White win material? Good. Nice work. How can White use a knight to attack three important pieces at the same time? You got it. White does not get distracted by the checkmate. Impressive knight play. Keep up the great work. Black's bishop and rooks want to become more active once the e6 pawn moves. What is White's best move in this position? Your positional skills are improving. Black is ready to play d2 and promote the pawn. How can White best defend against this dangerous pawn? Great defense. White's knight blockades. Bishops are most useful when controlling long, unblocked. How can White develop the bishop to make a pin? You got it? How can White stop the black pawns from promoting? Good idea. White's bishop and king will soon capture all of Black's pawns. White is threatening to capture a pawn and fork Black's rooks. Can you use a bishop to defend the c7 pawn? Can you combine the strength of your bishops and force a checkmate in 2 moves? Excellent! Look at the power of those 2 bishops. What is the best way to make White's passive light-squared bishop active? Powerful move! White attacked the knight and opened up several squares for the bishop. How can you take care of your pieces and they will take care of you? White's great job winning material by activating your pass. Place rooks on semi-open files. How can White's rook attack 2 undefended pawns? Very nice. Which pawn can you... Well done. White's rook does a great job supporting the passed pawn. How can you ensure that the pawn will promote? Nicely done. White attacks both Black's king and rook. Black just played queen e7, attacking White's pawn on e4. Let's set up a trap by castling. Black falls into the... You got it. White's active rook. How can white use the rooks to win black's queen? You are dangerous with a pair of rooks. Black just promoted a pawn, but white is winning anyway. How can you win material? Good idea. What's next? Well done. Queens are very... Use your powerful queen and find the only winning move for white. Great job. Excellent. White cap... Well done! White's powerful queen saved the game, and now white is winning. How can white checkmate in just 2 moves? Excellent move. Black... Nice work attacking the enemy king. Can you find a crushing move that immediately ends the game? Fantastic. Black's pawn on f7 is... Retreat your queen to safety while still preventing checkmate on the a1 square. You got it. White is up a piece, and white's queen protects the weaker file while still looking at attacking chances on the king side. Can you find a powerful queen maneuver that wins material by force? Great board vision. Black's king. Well played. Now let's capture black's rook. Excellent work demonstrating the power of the queen. Early in the game, you will want to castle the king to safety. In the endgame, you want to use the king to help escort pawns up the board. When it's safe, the king can be a strong piece. White wants to castle the king to safety. Choose the safest option for white's king. Excellent. White castles. Let's decide between castling kingside or queenside for white in this position. Great decision. White's king is in check. Can you find the best response to black's attack? You got it. Let's chase the black rook with our king. White's king is a monster. Black's rook is pushed away again, and now white is ready to push the pawn and keep attacking. You got it. White's pawn attacks the rook and is ready to promote. Black will have to sacrifice the rook for this pawn, when white's extra passed pawn should win the game. Even the king can occasionally be an attacking piece. How can you use it to force a quick check? The king completes his journey. Fantastic job. Pawns can control key squares, protect pieces, attack. Can you take over the center and attack black's bishop at the same time? Nicely done. Great job. Black's bishop is forced to retreat again when white... Good start. How can you help the... Great move. Almost there. What's next? Well done. White... Nicely. You got it. White's f pawn. Which pawn? What a powerful pawn. White's passed. Sometimes the simplest move... Excellent job forking the... Excellent play. Like in team sports, all of your pieces should work together for success in chess. Can you make white's pieces work together to force a checkmate in 2 moves? Great move. Since black's king would be checkmated on h8 after knight takes f7, black moves the king to f8. Can your pieces work together and deliver checkmate on the next move? White's two knights and rook work together to pull out the win. Nice job. Black's pieces are well coordinated. How can you checkmate in two moves? Great start. How can you checkmate? Nicely done. How can black's pieces coordinate to checkmate the white king? Great teamwork. White is checkmate. Black's pieces are so well coordinated that you can checkmate in the endgame. Try to find it. You got it. How can white's pieces work together to checkmate in two moves? White's knight. Excellent coordination of the pieces. Black is checkmated. A pawn with no opposing pawns that could ever block or capture it is useful because it is likely. Which pawn should you advance to force a winning queen vs bishop ending? Great job. Black's bishop is forced to capture. Exactly. White now has a winning queen vs bishop. How can you stop the b4 pawn before it promotes? You got it. How can you showed some great knight moves? How can White's one pawn overpower the black king and knight? Good start. Almost there. What's next? Good work. White should soon win the game. White's passed pawn is only 3 moves away from promoting. Push it. Good. Black's rook rushes back to defend the back rank. Keep pushing the passed pawn. Black's rook blocks the promotion square. You got it. Black's rook cannot. Nicely done. White wins material and will soon promote. How can White create a passed pawn in the race to promote? You got it. Black will promote first. Can you find the pawn move that wins the game for White? Excellent work. You got it. Let's capture Black's queen. Nice work handling that tricky pawn endgame. Your pawns can't. Black's king is trying to get to the corner of the board and stop White's advance pawn. How should White secure the win? Excellent. Nicely done. Don't move your pawn. Make a king move that keeps the knight from getting closer to your pawn. Good choice. Now Black can safely promote the... Are you going to win or draw this endgame as White? It all depends on your next move. Great job. White protects. Keep pushing the pawn. You got it. White will promote on the next. Can you find a forcing sacrifice that creates a passed pawn for White? Clever. White. Black's pawn rushes forward. Who will... The pawn race continue. Great job. Nice work. White's queen will move. Can you make sure that White's king stays stuck in front of its own pawn? Great move. Black prevents. Great defense. Exactly. Black secures the draw. Is there a pawn blocking your path? Can you find a powerful sacrifice that opens up the path for the a6 pawn to promote? Excellent. White will regain the queen on the next turn by promoting the pawn. Great job. Can you find a sacrifice that forces the pawn promotion? Great job. Excellent. White's sacrifice. How can White sacrifice in order to promote a pawn? Good start. How can you promote a... Well done. Black can't stop the... How can Black use a promotion trick to win material? Great start. How can you just... Well played. White will have to allow Black to promote to a queen because... Can you find a powerful sacrifice to force open the c-file or win a piece for Black? Great job. Nicely done. Black advances the c-pawn and discovers the bishop's check, preventing White How can white force a pawn promotion? You got it. White sacrifices 2 pawns, but gains a passed pawn. Advance it. Great work. White. Which pawn? Great job. White forces a passed. Excellent job. Let's promote to a queen. Great job. As we can see, white's queen. Which pawn should white capture? You got it. How should black recapture without allowing white to make a passed pawn? Nicely done. Black keeps the pawn structure symmetrical, so white cannot force a passed pawn. How can white distract the c7 pawn so that the d pawn can promote? Good start. Keep it up. Great choice. How can you promote your pawn? Black can't catch you. White will soon promote. A great reason to exchange pieces is when you are ahead in material. In that case, trades will simplify the game and make it easier for you. Can you find a way to force off both black's knight and rook to enter a simplified winning endgame? You got it. White. Nicely played. Black cannot. Can you find a winning plan that forces a trade of queens when black's passed pawn will be unstoppable? Excellent job. You got it. Great work. Black will push the pawn to victory. Future world champion Mikhail Botvinnik has the black pieces. Can you find his winning idea to trade down into a winning position? Great job, Botvinnik. Great choice. How should white exchange into a winning endgame? What's next? Well played. The h-pawn will soon promote and help white win the game. How can white ensure that the last pawn will survive? Good idea. What's next? White will soon promote the f-pawn and win the game. Save yourself. Black's king has one move that can save the game. Move your king into the square of the pawn. Nice move. Black's king enters the square of the pawn. Excellent work. Catch that pawn. We caught the pawn just in time. Great job. Which pawn move wins the game for white? Great job. You got it. Black's king. Can you find white's only winning move in this position? Excellent decision. Black's king. Well done. Black cannot prevent white from promoting on the next move. Can you find white's only winning move in this position? Excellent. Well done. Black cannot. Should white enter this king in pawn endgame or avoid the trade of rooks? Play white's best move. Well calculated. Nicely done. Black cannot enter the square of the pawn, so white is winning. How can white's king block the black king from catching the h-pawn? You got it. Black attempts to capture white's. Wonderful play. Your careful moves are rewarded with a win. Gain the winning advantage by creating a passed pawn. Often, can you find a way to force a passed pawn and win the game for white? As long as white plays g6 immediately, this idea also works. Can you find a way to attack the h7 pawn immediately and force a passed pawn? Can you find a way to force... Good move. Now play the winning move. Great job. Black's king cannot catch the passed pawn. Only one move wins. Find the winning idea. Great work. Black is easy. White is hanging on by a thread. Can you find a powerful move that forces the trade of rooks with a winning position? Excellent technique. How should white aim to promote a pawn before the black king can stop it? You got it. Black's defenses are overwhelmed. Let's promote. Black pays a serious price for capturing our queen. Great job using the passed pawn to win material. How can you sacrifice? Well done. White. Don't be afraid to give up your pieces. Can you find a powerful sacrifice that forces checkmate? Excellent. Great job. Black is checkmated. Can you find a sacrifice for white that will win the battle? Nice move. White wins a queen for the sacrifice bishop. Good job. How can white sacrifice to set up a winning fork? Brilliant sacrifice. Almost there. How can you win material? White has an extra bishop. Our bishop wants to attack the king, but its own pawn is in the way. Find a stunning sacrifice to clear a path leading to the king. Powerful move. Fantastic. Black has just sacrificed a queen to launch a mating attack. Can you make it work? Great move. Now white tries to distract us by threatening checkmate. Let's end the game immediately. Your attacking skills continue to improve. Can you find a way to trap black's c5 bishop? Excellent. Great job. Black's queen is all by itself on the edge of the board. Can you find a way to trap it? Well done. Can you use a rook to trap white's queen in the middle of the board? Amazingly, white's... Can you find a way to trap the h2 bishop? Nicely done. Black's bishop is trapped. You got it. Great job. White captures the trap. Black just pushed the pawn to c5, planning to trap white's bishop with c4 on the next move. How can white best escape? Great job. White's bishop escapes being... A discovered attack occurs when you move one... We are following one of 15 games played at the same time by Grandmaster Timur Gareyev blindfolded. Let's play the Grandmaster's next move, 14. Knight c4. Black. Fantastic. White just captured a pawn on c5, thinking black would capture on c5 with the bishop and trade queens. Great job. Black on... Nice work. How should white use a discovered attack to win material? Good start. How can you win material? Well played, white. How can white checkmate? What a... How can white use a discovered attack to win material? Good start. Which piece? Well played. Next turn you will capture the black queen. The discover. Any move with white's rook creates a discovered check. Can you find the best move? Great. Nicely done. Which discovered check can win material for white? Great start. How can white wins material? Well done. How should black prevent a deadly discovered check on the e-file? Nice try. Excellent. How should white capture on g3? That's checkmate. Well done. White is down a piece, but black's king is exposed. Discovered checks to the rescue. White's king discovers the rook's check and protects. A double check is the most forcing. Could you find the double check that's also checkmate? Great job. White's double check is also checkmate. White to move and win. Excellent. White is far behind in material, but can use a double check to force checkmate. How can you do it? You got it. White double checks black's king, forcing. How can black use a double check to force a mate in 2 moves? Excellent job. Black checkmates white. Can you find a forced mate for white? Nice try. Unfortunately, this creative idea fails because black's bishop can block the rook's check on the g-file. You're close. Try again. Great job. Black's king is forced into the corner, lined up with white's rook and bishop. White's double check ends the game with. Often the opponent defends against. White is dreaming of checkmate on g7, but black's knight on e6 is protecting that square. How should white remove this obstacle? Excellent. White. Exactly. White has an over. Black's bishop is trying to prevent white from pushing the pawn to g7. Can you find a way to directly remove this key defender? Black cannot stop white. Black's bishop on h5 is barely keeping the position together. Remove it. Great job. Fantastic job removing the guard with a clever sacrifice. How can white remove the defender of black's bishop? Good start. How can you win material? Well played. White now has a material. Black's king is defending both promotion squares for white's pawns. Which pawn promotion wins the game for white? Exactly. White. Excellent. White promotes into a queen with a winning position. When a knight checkmates a king, which is surrounded by its own pieces, it's called a smothered mate. White to move. Can you force a smothered mate in 2 moves? Great job. Black is... You got it. Nicely done. White has a forced smothered mate. Great job. Excellent. This key... You got it. Let's finish the game with checkmate. Great job. White win. White can win instantly. Find the move. Fantastic. White shot. White just played a3, attacking black's bishop. Let's play the sneaky move queen e7 for black. White happily takes the free bishop. Great job. White won a bishop. Do you see the smothered mate pattern? How can you win the game? Great job. Black's king is forced. A fantastic double check forces black's king. Exactly. Black's piece. Great job working your way through smothered mates. Deflection is the tactic of removing a defender by making it move to another square. Off. Can you find a deflection tactic to win material for white? Great start. What's next? Well done. Can you find a way to win black's queen by deflecting the black king? You got it. White's. How can you deflect the g2 pawn to turn the game around for black? Great move. Well done. The white. Can you use a deflection tactic to force checkmate in 2 for black? You stunned white. Nice work. How can black try to deflect away the only defender of white's back rank? Good choice. If white recap.
How can you decoy black's king to a square where your knight can fork the king and queen?
Exactly. White wins the queen and with. Can you use a decoy tactic to attract black's king to a forking square? White has a decoy tactic that will win black's queen. Find the move. Great job. Black has a forcing capture, decoying a piece to a square where it will be forked with white's king. Can you find the move? Great job. You got. Can you decoy white's rook to a square where it will be lost to a fork? Excellent. Black cap. Zwishin. Black just captured a white rook on f2. What should white play before recapturing the rook? Great move. What's. Both queens are in danger. How can white escape with a material advantage? Nice try, but white has a powerful desperado queen move. Fantastic. Can you find a powerful Zwischenzug or in-between move for white before recapturing black's rook? This does not capture black's rook on d1. Try again. Thanks to white's Zwischenzug move, white has a great position in this endgame. Black's queen just captured a piece on d6. Should white immediately recapture, or can you find a strong Zwischenzug? Excellent Zwischenzug. Black's king is deflected from defensive. Nicely. Both queens are under attack. Can you find a desperado queen check that gains a black rook for white's queen? Great job. Remove. Nice. After black forks white's king and rook with knight e3 check, white will be up a knight at the end of this comp. Excellent. White captures. Black's king cannot move, and black's unprotected queen is on the same diagonal as white's queen. Find a powerful move for white. Great job threatening checkmate and capturing black's queen at the same time. Black captures the queen. Now let's win the game immediately. Powerful play. Keep up the great work. Can you find powerful moves to take advantage of black's vulnerable bishop? Excellent. White attacks black's bishop and forces it to... Nicely done. Black's bishop is pushed back yet again. What a powerful move. Great job. White has sacrificed 2 pieces to open lines of attack against black's king. Let's use power moves to win the game. Powerful move. White forces black's king into the corner. Keep attacking. Great job. White regained 1 piece and is still on the attack. Can you force black's king back into the corner and then threaten checkmate in 2 moves? You know how to play powerful moves. Black's king is forced to h8. Now finish the game by threatening checkmate, and black's rook on f8 at the same time. Excellent play. White threatens both queen takes h7 and queen takes f8 checkmate. Black cannot defend against both threats. Can you find a powerful combination that destroys black's position? Fantastic move. White sac. Great job. White has. You've learned a lot of tactics. Now put them together in powerful combinations. Combinations are a series of forcing moves, often involving sacrifices that can help to win the game. What combination can white play to checkmate in just 2 moves? There's no checkmate on the next turn. Try again and look for a strong check. Great start. Where's the check? Good work. What combination can white play to check? Great start. Where's the checkmate? Good work. Can you find a combination of moves that will win material for white? Well spotted. White's simple. Nicely done. White recaptures the knight, threatening black's unprotected light-squared bishop. Since black's queen is also under attack, white will win material. How can white win material? Good start. What's next? Well played. White wins a piece. Find a forcing combination, removing all of black's pieces. Great job. White. White has sacrificed the queen for a powerful combination. How can you win material or checkmate? Great job. Excellent job working through the combination. Black is threatening checkmate in 1, but white can force a checkmate in 3 first. Excellent. Can you find a forced checkmate in 2 moves? Well done. Black's king no longer controls the A8 square. Deliver. White's powerful rooks and pawn overwhelm black's position. Great job. Using forcing moves only checks. Can you find a 3-move checkmate for white? Power chess and act. Good job. Now let's finish the game. You got it. Black. Can you find 2 knight checks that lure black's king into the center and forces checkmate in 3 moves? Great job. Black's king is forced into the center. Can you find another knight check that forces checkmate in 2 moves? Drawing the king closer to the center is a good plan. Drawing the king closer to the center is a good plan, but there is no longer a forced checkmate. Try again? Nicely done. Black's king is forced to the e4 square. Can you find the final knight check to end the game? The knights work together and check. Can you find two knight checks that lure black's king into the center and forces checkmate in 3 moves? Great job. Black's king is nicely done. Black's king is forced to the e4 square. Can you find the final knight check to end the game? The knights work together and... How can white use a double check to force a 3-move checkmate? Nice start. Perfect. A pretty... White is expecting black to resign, but can you shock your opponent with a queen sacrifice that forces checkmate in 3 moves? Stop. What a comeback. Black turned the game around with a 3-move check. A queen sacrifice is always worth it if you can force checkmate. Sometimes it's also worthwhile if you have good compensation in the form of other well-coordinated pieces. Can you show off your attacking skills and create a mating attack against white's king? Great job. White's king is forced in the corner. Can you find a forced checkmate in 2 moves? Fantastic. Your attacking skills continue to improve. Keep up the great work. Can you show off your attacking skills and create a mating attack against white's king? Great job. Fantastic. Your attacking skills continue. Can you find a powerful sacrifice that forces mate in 2 for white? Powerful move. Great work. Can you find GM Ivanchuk's incredible queen sacrifice that clears the way for a pawn to soon promote and win the game? What awesome work. Black can't stop the pawn from promoting, and white soon wins the game. Can you find a forcing attack that leads to checkmate for white? Great job. Black expected white to resign, only to be shocked by a forcing checkmate. White has given up a queen to expose the black king. How can you checkmate in just 2 more moves? Excellent. You are deadly with queen sacrifices. Great work. If you are losing, look for ways that things look hopeless for black, but can you find the move that saves the game? Nice save. Can you find a way to attack the bishop and force a draw for white? You got it. How can white continue to... Nicely done. Black's bishop is forced to retreat to safety. Play the move that secures the draw for white. You got it. Sacrifice your queen to make the game end in a stalemate. Well done. Black must recapture and the game ends in stalemate. White is threatening checkmate thanks to the pinned e7 pawn. Should black resign or can you find a way to save the game? Great job. You saved a difficult position once again. Can you find a forcing bishop sacrifice that draws for white? Black. Keep checking black's king. Keep checking black's king. Finally, in spite of black's huge material advantage, there is no way to break through. As long as white only moves White's king is threatening to attack black's pawns. What is black's only move that doesn't lose? How can white attack the c6 pawn before black has a chance to defend it? Well played. Black's only winning move is based upon creating two isolated pawns, pawns that cannot be protected by other pawns. For white, good. You got it. Keep going. Great job. Black will capture the... Can you find white's only winning move in this position? This trade cripples black's pawn structure, creating three pawn islands. White to move. Can you find a temporary sacrifice that ruins black's pawn structure? Excellent move. Black now has four pawn islands and several weak pawns. What is the best way to attack? Great job. White attacks black's isolated c5 pawn, regaining the sacrifice. How can you defend the d4 pawn and add two pawns to your pawn chain? Excellent. Can you find a way to gain time attacking a white piece and build a new pawn chain in white's territory? Excellent job. Black. Nicely done. Black. Impressive. You built a powerful pawn chain in white's territory. Black has a comfortable position. Nicely done. Black attacks the base of white's pawn chain. Since taking black's pawn on a3 allows bishop takes c3, white tries to defend the b2 pawn with the rook. White's pawn... Exactly! Black captures a pawn and forks white's rook and d4 pawn. White's pawn chain is collapsing, and with it, the game. Great job. Black's dark-squared bishop joins the knight in attacking the weak d4 pawn. Black will win this pawn on the next turn with a great position. Look for a pawn move that can attack black's queen. You got it. Excellent. White builds a pawn chain from f2 h4 in order to win black's rook on d2. The more space you control on the board, the more room your pieces have to maneuver, and the less space your opponent has. A great way to claim space is to put your pawns in. Find world champion Capablanca's pawn move that takes space and paralyzes black's position. Excellent job. White grabs space and dominates the entire board. White can save the... Good idea. White... You got it. White... Pawn power in action. White grab... How can you... Play a3. How can you... It seems... Fantastic. If... Excellent. And pass into the rescue. Black prevented... X. Pawn trades open up lines. Great job. Nicely done. Great. Black wants to... Great job. Great job. Nice. Very... Great defensive play. Black's position isn't perfect. Excellent. White's weak pawn has become a monster. Nicely done. You got it. Black is... Great job. Great decision. Black has a very comfortable... Excellent. Can you... Great job. Nicely done. Great job defending. Great job. You got it. Black's knight leaps into... Beyond basic notation, White's king is in serious danger. Let's play Black's move. Great job. Great work. Great decision. White thinks Black... Nicely done. White is ready to play. A fantastic display by White appear. You snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. En passant wins the game, discovering your bishop's check that Black cannot escape. Great job.